What's up guys, I'm Noah. Welcome back to another Anime Vanguard video, and in today's video, we're going to be ranking all the new units from the update in a universal tier list with every single unit in it. But guys, before we start, like I always say, I'm trying to become the best Roblox anime YouTuber out there. So if you want to join the journey, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. But with all that being said, I hope you enjoy the video. Alright guys, so we're here with the tier list. Starting off, we have just a overall general tier list. I do believe this is going to be pretty accurate. If you have any changes or want them to be changed, then just let me know in the comments. Again, I play Anime Vanguard a lot, so I have a decent opinion, but still, you know, I don't know everything. I'm not a tester. I'm not like Valk. I do not know everything. Up here, best units in the game, would say right now, Vanguard, Sanju, Yuha, and Baiken. Could switch it around a little bit, you know. Yuha is just kind of really good because of his range, and Vanguard, Sanju, obviously we know that, and Baiken. Very good support. You can put her in meta support or up there, but her tethered and whatnot and her ability to, you know, just being very good overall is very helpful. And then starting off down here, we have Arc. Now, what's Arc? I think that's her name. Arc. Her evolved name is Arc the Ancestor, but basically she has a Bloodthirst counter, which on bleeding, enemy entry or takedown gains 1 Bloodthirst stack. On hit, gains 1 Bloodthirst attack. On hit, applies bleed for 30%, damage for 6 seconds. And then type Earth. This unit can transform using Bloodthirst attacks. So during type Earth form, 100% damage, 20% range, spawns all previously killed enemies as summons with 30% of this unit's damage stat as health. Use the Marble Phantasm ability to select one of the below elements, and then she can switch between water, nature, and fire. Fire obviously just burn, nature repulses, and water slows. So essentially, she is like a 3-in-1 unit. You can have her to slow, have her to repulse, have her to burn, have her spawn in enemies, have her bleed. I mean, it's literally insane. This got to be one of the most well-rounded, just general good units like that we've seen in a while. The fact that she can switch elements, whatnot. You could either put her in meta support for that fact, or just the fact that she can have summons and has bleed and all this stuff could be up here in, you know, A tier or not, maybe high B tier, A tier. She's definitely meta. For now, I'll put her in meta support because, you know, the fact that she can turn into either a slow, repulse, or burn is just, well, that's very strong, to be honest. You know, you can go to slow and then switch it to repulse them back, and then probably can't do that overpowered stuff, because if you could have literally repulsing and slow infinite amount of times with her, which is way too overpowered. And then also she does do summoning stuff, whatnot, based on her overall damage, which is very nice to have. And then next up is Hibana. I think that's her name, Hibana. Basically, there's nothing too crazy about her, right? She's a burn unit. She has the fire element, you know, a burn unit, but she does have a, you know, little key feature that makes her a little bit better than another burn unit. So she has a little tree that pops up behind her, right? And that tree, basically what happens is, if I am not mistaken, it reapplies burn when enemies go into that range. And that's not just going to be for her own burn, but for anybody's burn. So my guess, pairing her up with somebody like Choi, who's already a very good unit, might make, you know, her very good, which again will put her into a support category. If I were to rank it, I do think that she would be below Arc, though, because obviously Arc is just way more, you know. Hibana probably would buff Arc if you were using Arc on her fire element passive. But again, mostly stuff are meta support. There's not much to argue about. They don't have crazy DPS and all their, you know, passives that are helping them out with being able to, whether it's switch to slow or switch to repulse or switch to burn or reapply burn. You know, that's just kind of how it is. These are all mini support units starting off. So Hibana will go into meta support, probably below Hibana, or not Hibana. Hibana goes below Arc. I would put Arc very high, and Hibana probably somewhere around here. Again, it's not really in order. Astafa would probably be up there too. Alucard up there. All these units not really in order, but Hibana probably worse than Arc in terms of support. But it is really more of like what the situation is. If you're bringing burn units, if you have burn units, bringing Hibana is a good choice. She's a good helper to those burn stuff. And then we got to Merlin. All right, Merlin, I'll read her passes right now. So basically, she has something called Perfect Cube, which is one of her abilities. It blocks 3 single status effects from being applied to this unit or any unit in range of 40% of this unit's range. Then the cube is destroyed. Cube regenerates self or charges 40 seconds or after 40 seconds of inactivity. And there's also something called Absolute Negation. I don't know which one is which. I think Absolute Negation is the ability, and it might be a one-time ability because it's very, very, very strong. But starting off, she has that negation thing that can remove all status effects. But to be honest, with how Cosmic got reworked in Update 6, I think it was, you know, if you have a Cosmic unit, not needed to be cleansed at all from status effects. But now her other ability is Absolute Negation. Now, Absolute Negation inflicts all enemies on the map with Nullify for 40 seconds. And then PvP only removes all current buffs from every opposing unit and prevents buffing from being applied for 40 seconds. Can only be activated once. Once Absolute Negation is activated, gains 40% damage and 10% range. So there it is. I think Absolute Negation can be activated once, unless it's only PvP. But when it is activated, again, goes up more damage and more range. Nice to have. But again, with the cleanse and the Absolute Negation, it's going to be another support unit. I would put her above Hibana, though, if we're ranking this unit so far. Arca, best, then Merlin, then Hibana. Because Hibana, again, only really buffing other fire units, right? And then Merlin, good for cleansing. And then Arca, just literally all in one. Right, all in one. You can't go wrong with it. And next up, we got Rudas. I think that's what it is. Again, only unit I know for this update remotely is going to be the Vanguard. Even then, I don't really know any of the units. So if I'm pronouncing their names or butchering them, my apologies. All right, so for Rudas, again, if I'm mispronouncing it, my apologies. So we have, for the passives, a rank staff. Has a mana meter that regenerates 1% every second. Attacks restore 5% of missing mana. This unit can input a number amounts 1 through 100 and use that much mana to buff this unit's damage by 4%. The amount mana used for any attacks, and it's about to 100% is 4x, 25 is 2, 50 is 3. No, hold up, sorry. 25 1x, 50 2x, and then 25% 3x, 100% 4x. So 4x damage if you get the mana all the way up to 100%. And then Family Man dodges all attacks. When mana falls below 10%, buffs all allies in range by 15% damage and 10% range for 30 seconds. When this unit consumes mana, buff self by 40% for one attack. So again, this is now more debatable whether we could say that he is a support or an actual DPS. His Family Man passive is definitely a support and also does buff him. And his rank staff, though, is more of a damage. But I think the fact that, to be honest, no. He's pretty good damage. I would put him up there, not crazy meta, but if I were to put him in as a damage unit, probably somewhere in A tier, a sub-meta unit. Not really too crazy in order. I'll maybe put her below Brisket or maybe above Brisket. It could be either way. It depends on how you use him again. It is more of a manual unit. Having Monarch on him would be very, very nice and probably make him good. Because not only, again, is he doing decent damage when he's using his mana, he's also buffing himself when he's using his mana and buffing your other units when using mana. And his range is pretty big. So when you use that mana, it's kind of just like a byproduct of it. So I will put him pretty high up there. If I'm mistaken on this, again, tell me in the comments. All right, this is just from what I have seen as showcases and how useful the units are. But that should be the main 4 exclusives. Again, I would say go for Arc and Rudas. Probably focus on if you were like really, really nitpicky on what you want to go for. But obviously, all these are good units to go for. Merlin, good cleansing. Hibana, good fire support. Arc, good literally overall everything. And Rudas has some good support and good DPS. But next up, we got Invincible and Conquest. Alright, I've showcased all these units, by the way, so if you want to watch some of my showcases and see for yourself, you can go do that on your own. But this unit is insane. Alright, when we first saw it come out, I was already saying this was going to be one of the best DPSs in the game. Alavia, a fellow leaderboard tournament, whatever, sweat on this game. They initially doubted me. I was telling them, Invincible is a good unit. He didn't believe me at first, but then he eventually, looked at it and saw, this is a good unit right here. Invincible and Conquest, insane DPS. It's not much to explain. It's just that how it works is he has an ability, right? When you use that ability, you consume a stock, and it also makes him do more damage when you lose a stock, and he does more damage to base enemies, and when there's a boss enemy range, he goes full AoE. It's just so much stuff. He's just genuinely overall a insane DPS unit, but you do have to kind of like, you know, calculate what it's actually going to be. It's not visually shown going to be like, you know, 100,000 DPS, but it is definitely up there. I'm going to put him very high up there. One of the best DPS in the game. For now, I'll just put him borderline meta. You know, could go maybe below Virgil and Dante and Sid and whatnot, but for now, I'm going to be putting Invincible and Conquest as one of the best of this update in terms of just hard DPS, right? Just like hard up, straight DPS. No other like support passives to help other units. It's just very, 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 very good DPS. And next up, we've got Rimuru. How Rimuru works is she is basically a Ragna. The more you put down, the more damage the units will be doing. And if you upgrade them together, they get cheaper and whatnot. So very free to play, friendly, even without Ethereal having Solar or Deadeye. Going to be very good. Monarch is absolutely not needed at all. And she can be a, he can be a very good unit, even without Monarch. Very good unit. I'm going to put him probably up here. Let's go. Let's put him maybe above Aizen. Yeah, I'll put him above Aizen. Why not? Below Soul. Yeah, that seems pretty good. Definitely not better than Invincible and Conquest on main DPS, and definitely better than Rudas. And last up, we got Kaguya. Best unit Anime Vanguard has released right now, in my opinion. There's been a lot of spectacles saying that, oh, she's worse than Vanguard Sunju and whatnot, or oh, she is, you know, not going to be as strong. But I think you have to consider this, guys. She is going to be meta for like the whole entire while. All right, how she works. First off, she takes every single element from your team and uses it as her own, already applying insane buffs, right? Not to mention she has an extremely high DPS, and then her domains are very, very good support. So not only is she just like a good DPS, obviously not as good as Sun Jin-woo for DPS, but she is very high DPS. But the fact that she has all these domains that can, you know, correlate with one another, right? If you have a fire and a water one and you use them back to back, there is a little buff or whatnot. And when you use the domains, obviously there is a, you know, support to that, you know. Very good. Obviously not as high like base, like if you're just looking at the big numbers, right? If you want to look for a solid, you know, there's a lot of damage, Vanguard Sunju is still going to be there. But the fact that Kagu is also a very good support puts her at one of the best units in this update. But guys, if you have skipped to the end to see everything, just a quick overview for you guys who did do that. Kaguya, obviously the best unit of this update. Invincible, extremely high DPS, just raw, straight damage, absolutely melting anything that comes into sight. Rimuru, good for you to play. Monarch, terrible on her. You want to place multiple down to get all the buffs. Rudas, good DPS, good buff. Buffs units in range when he uses his mana. Buffs himself even more when using the mana. Then you got supports down here. Arc, all in one, does literally everything. Merlin right here negates bad things that happen to your units. You know, all those passes and whatnot. She applies nullifiers to the whole entire map, and it's a one-time use, but that will buff her in the end. And then Hibana buffs fire damage, so good to bring for fire support. But that should be it, guys. You can, you know, make any changes you want in the comments or tell me if I'm wrong or right. But that should be a general tier list for update 6.5. Everything and good. Nothing's really changed much besides the other units, because obviously nobody's really been nerfed or debuffed. It just were all the new units put into place. But yeah, that should be everything, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Again, like I said, already said, if I have anything that needs to be changed, then tell me in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, guys, make sure to like, subscribe, join my Discord server, join my Roblox group, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Peace out.